honor and privilege to recognize some of our employees who have 25 years of experience in the Rochester City School District. And so we want to take an opportunity to recognize these employees. We're not sure how long they're going to continue, given that they've got 25 years, but we're hoping that they have experience. They understand what we have to do. We're hoping that they continue to understand what we have to do in order to ensure that the children of the Rochester City School District are educated and that they are career and college ready to participate in the future's global marketplace. So that's my vision. I know that that's the superintendent's vision, and we're hoping that you have partnered with us in order to ensure, particularly black and brown children. I've always got to put race in there because we've got a race issue here in the Rochester area. And so I'm hoping that you're sensitive and have been sensitive to the cultural needs of the students in this community, so that when they go out, they're just as prepared as students in any other school district. So I'm going to allow, before we do the presentations, to allow the superintendent to share a few words. Mr. Superintendent.
Good evening, everyone. So I want to say thank you for enduring service to Rochester City School District. 25 years is no small accomplishment, and we owe our sincere gratitude for all that you have done for our students in our school district in a variety of capacities. So thank you on behalf of all of our employees and our families and community members for what you have done to bring joy to the lives of our students and families in the RCSD. So thank you very much.
So what we're going to do is that we're going to call the employees who are here, who have 25 years of experience, and we'd also like to say a few words, if you don't mind, about your experiences here at the Rochester City School District, particularly since we've got some time. So the first person I'm going to call up is Miriam Lynn Adams. So have you say a few words? You can't speak? All right. Thank you very much. Congratulations. The next person is Peggy, and you've got to help me with this name, Calgano. Am I saying that correctly? You don't want to say anything either? All right. Well, we'll give you this award. Congratulations. You're welcome. And the last person who's here, we have 5, but there are 2 who are unavailable this evening. And the last person is Christine Frederick.
Okay, I would like to say this is commitment to the city where I graduated. I was hired by teachers who taught me in this district. I've been a city resident my whole life. Neighbors are here on the board. Friends are here. And I just want to say thank you to all those colleagues and parents and administrators who walked with me, taught me, helped me learn and grow. And I look forward to many more years of learning and growing in this district for our community and our children. Thank you. My principal wants me to plug for BLLA, Bilingual Language Academy, where I work. We need all the support we can get, and our kids who are coming here from Puerto Rico and so many different places really need support and stability. Thank you.
So So again, on behalf of President White and my colleagues on the Board of Education and Superintendent Terry Dade, we want to congratulate those awardees of 25 years of service. We know it hasn't been easy, and it seems like it's getting even harder. But we have to make a commitment to the children and the families of this district. So again, we want to congratulate you. Next up is Commissioner LeBron, who will present the Yes We Can Award. Commissioner LeBron.
Good evening, everyone. So, Dr. Charles Lunsford, school number 19, continues to show promising growth in ELA math and science performance. Last year, 100% of students in grades 4th scored between level 2 and 4 on the New York State Science exam. So I'm going to applaud them for that because that means 100% of their students passed. Third grade math saw an increase in performance levels of 3 and 4 of 28.9%, and third grade ELA had an increase in performance levels 3 and 4 of 33.2%. So led by principal, I know I want to applaud them for that. For those who may be watching and don't understand the significant growth in those numbers, clearly not easy work. Led by Principal Silas Lee, school number 19 has embraced the collaborative co-teaching model, shifted a culture to be more restorative as evidenced by students and family feedback, decreased in the number of overall suspensions, and truly demonstrate what it means to model the core attributes of a Victorious Minds Academy school. So school number 19 brings the Yes We Can motto to life, and they serve as an inspiration to all. So congratulations to school number 19 and the staff, if you guys want to come up. Yes.
While they're coming up, I just want to remind School 19, you know, Mr. President, when you and I went over there for the leadership meeting, I think for me, I was fed up by low performance. So when I got over there, oh, we ate them alive, if you recall, Mr. President. And so I am humbled, and I am so excited. I know Commissioner LeBron is giving this award, but we beat them up bad. We beat them up. I'm telling you, I was done by that time. And so to see School 19 accept the challenge and come up to this level is to be commendable. And just like we beat you up over there because we was just fed up with what we had seen in this district, I want to also, along with Commissioner LeBron and Superintendent Dade and our board, to just thank you so much for doing this work on behalf of our children. We really do appreciate that so very much. Thank you so very much.
Hello, everyone. I'm Monique Silas Lee, proud principal, Dr. Charles T. Lunsford, school number 19. And first of all, I have to thank our supporters, Superintendent Dade, the board, and our school chief, Amy Shivey. And I have to tell you that this is definitely a result of hard work, dedications. My teachers, they have my back, I have their back. We work together. It's not easy, but it's worth it. So thank you.
So the meeting will start at 6:30. Thank you, everybody.
Good evening, everybody. My clock says 6:30. That clock says 6:25, but we'll go by Apple time. Assume that's accurate. Good evening. How's everybody doing? Good evening. How's everybody doing? Good? All right. I want to thank Vice President Elliott and Commissioner LeBron for leading our initial recognition, the recognition part of our agenda. We have some incredible employees and incredible students and staff. And to work any place for 25 years, but particularly this district when the charge and the task is so important, is an incredible contribution to a society such as ours. Our children, it's very hokey, but our children are our future, literally and figuratively. And when you dedicate 25 years of your life to that, it's an incredible contribution to society, and quite often, and quite sadly, our employees don't get the recognition they deserve. They are often beaten and publicly and berated, and you should know that the Board of Education appreciates your work, and that appreciation is reflected in a very small way tonight in the Yes We Can Award and in the employee recognition for employees that work for 25 years. So join us again in giving those employees and that school number 19 a round of applause. Thank you very much. All right, well, as we always do, we begin with an act of reverence and the Pledge of Allegiance. I typically look for a young person. I see a couple of young men in the back over there. Any of you young men in the back there, students of the Rochester School District, just raise your hand. I see some young faces. Would any one of you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Is that true? Would you like to lead us? We would truly appreciate it. We need somebody to volunteer. No? Look at that. Now they're debating who's going to be the person. Well, you both could do it if you'd like. Yeah. Come on, let's give them a round of applause. All right. You can just take this mic over here. And before you begin, let us know your name and what school you go to. Yeah, right there is good.
My name is Hassan Parker, and I go to Edison Tech.
All right, now.
My name is Tyler Bowler, and I go to Edison Tech.
All right, whenever you're ready, gentlemen.
Wait, the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, sir.
I can't see.
You got flag is right there. No, they don't.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Hey, before you go, wait, before you go, you both go to Edison Tech. What year are you in? Senior year? And all right, that's good. What you thinking about doing next year? College? Okay. You have any idea where you're going? All right. Let's give him a round of applause. And what about you, young man? All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We're very proud of you. We appreciate that. Okay, next item on the agenda is, what's that? Okay. Thank you. Is acceptance of minutes. For those of you who are sort of novice or haven't watched many board meetings, every meeting begins with the Pledge of Allegiance. Then we have to approve minutes, that is notes that somebody took about prior meetings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through all the meetings that we've had, and then somebody is going to make a motion to approve those minutes. And for those, again, who are new to this, you young folks, most meetings do record what happens, and then you have to approve the notes that were taken. So that's all that this is about. So I need a motion to approve the minutes from November the 21st, business meeting, November 21st, district-wide safety plan public hearing, the December 5th, 2019 business meeting, the December 19th, 2019 business meeting, the January 2nd, looks like 2020 organizational meeting, and the January 9th, 2020 business meeting. Is there a motion? Thank you, Commissioner LeBron. Seconded by Vice President Elliott. All those in favor of approving those minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, the ayes have it. Next item on the agenda is Terry Dade. Mr. Dade, for those of you who don't know, and I can't imagine that there's anybody who would not know this, is our superintendent, Superintendent Dade.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Have a pretty lengthy update this evening, but the update is exceptionally important. Something I did not include in my presentation to you this evening is we recently received the State Comptroller's Part 1. This occurred from my desk early this afternoon, so we haven't had enough time to really digest everything that was reported thus far, but I did want everyone to know that we do have a bit of a disconnect with regards to some of the findings. So I did want to give the board a few points of information. One, we absolutely welcomed and continue to welcome the support from our colleagues from across the state, including the State Comptroller's Office, and I absolutely thank them for supporting Rochester during this time. You do have to remember that when the comptroller put in their reports, these are all estimates. So this isn't an audit. It is a review of projections and estimates. So that's important to remember as you digest the information. The other key point of information is that the Part 1 results are dependent upon my November 12th presentation that I provided the board and community at large. As everyone on the dais understands, a lot happened between November 12th and where we sit today. So we're looking forward to the opportunity to provide the Comptroller's Office with additional information, particularly as it relates to usage of title funds, considerations of we did take into account unemployment and things of that nature. So there's additional points of information that we're excited to share with our colleagues so we can all make sure that we're providing the most accurate and to-date information for our community to move forward on. So the last piece that Mr. Franklin's going to be able to describe more to you next week as we continue to digest it is when you look at projections, you can be conservative, you can be uber conservative and the like. So those are going to be different approaches to calculating what a deficit might be. So I do appreciate the Comptroller's recognition that if we had not taken immediate action, we would have ended this year $60 to $70 million in the hole as of the end of this school year. So we appreciate that recognition that had we not taken considerable action, we would have been in some further complications. So while I'm not ready to answer a lot of questions because as I told you, we had a busy day and I just got the information like you all early this afternoon, but we will be able to provide with Mr. Franklin's leadership a further analysis of the Comptroller's Part A and where we see our estimates lining up or not aligning up with that report. So I apologize for that not being in the deck, but again, early this afternoon, late-breaking information. So getting to the presentation, as we think of long-term fiscal stability for the district, my team is now looking forward to what do we need to do in 2021 to have a balanced budget and beyond to provide fiscal stability to the RCSD. So we have some recommendations for the board that are really founded on three guiding principles. One is giving 2,300 middle and high school students a better opportunity to succeed. The second principle is celebrating our nationally recognized pre-K program and giving more children the best start possible. And then the third guiding principle is really creating a blueprint for fiscal stability in the RCSD. So principle one, giving 2,300 middle and high school students a better opportunity to succeed. The first recommendation that I put before the board for consideration is bringing back the iconic Franklin community. So at the current Franklin campus, we have students from Integrated Arts and Technology High School and Vanguard And our recommendation is to combine those two communities into a Franklin Upper, which would serve 9th through 12th grade students, and Franklin Lower for 7th and 8th grade students. Utilizing this approach is cost neutral. The reason behind this approach is really looking at accountability. We just met with State Ed this morning, Commissioner Tahoe, Deputy Wilkins, and they expressed concern with the current accountability status for 7th through 12th grade buildings is an amazing feat to overcome. So we've all been talked about Monroe and their success, and with their current setup, it's difficult for them to get out of receivership. So we want to give more of our schools a chance at success in getting out of receivership. So splitting into an upper lower provides that opportunity for our students at the Franklin campus. So we're excited to offer a recommendation that could bring back Franklin. Our second recommendation in that same bucket is at Monroe High School, creating a Monroe Upper and a Monroe Lower. Again, 9th through 12th and 7th through 8th. This will be a bit of a cost, but it'll be well worth it when we think of the resources that we pour into schools under receivership. For additional administration, when you split into two campuses, you have to have an administrator at each building, a principal at each building. Moving on to guiding principle number 2, giving more children the best start possible. So current status, pre-K is offered at 30 schools in the district. Community partners do an amazing job helping us deliver the program in the district. Success of the programs, whether you're community-based or in the RCSD, are evaluated on an ongoing basis. Our goal is to add capacity to help ensure as many kids as possible benefit from the best programs. The recommendation before you will move approximately 25% of the seats presently with community-based organizations will instead be served in RCSD schools. Even before I came into the district, I heard about the pre-K success. The success here in Rochester is nationally renowned, so even when I was in DC, we were studying what that model might look like in my elementary school. Success like at the Rochester Early Childhood Education Center. The success of this program is without doubt. It's in its 4th year and continues to show growth each and every year. Students learn through play and hands-on activities with a focus on language development, self-esteem, and independence. There's full-time parent liaison, social worker on site with speech, OT, and PT support. And parents are able to earn high school equivalency diploma by attending classes at Rochester Early Childhood Education Center. The data is what's really driving this decision. So if you key in on this graphic, we have a long-term and long-standing enrollment challenge in the RCSD. I've shown the graphic over and over and over again. A steady decline for the past 14 plus years of student enrollment, and we have to think creatively about how do we reverse that trend because of the consequences that our district will face with continued decline. The first graphic shows that pre-K students who enroll in a program in the RCSD have a 75% return rate into RCSD schools. 75% start in RCSD, continue on in RCSD. Our students who engage in pre-K with community-based organizations have a 53% return rate. The others are going to charter and other avenues to pursue their education. The next graphic, currently the RCSD pre-K has 1,266 students. Our community-based organizations serve 1,927 students. So when I say this, I want to make sure that we don't miss this point. I value the partnerships that we have with our community-based organizations. And when I think about partnerships, we really should have more of the ownership in the RCSD while partnering with other organizations to help assist. What's shown in this middle graphic is we are assisting almost with pre-K and not really serving the majority of our pre-K students. The proposal before you today would reverse that trend. For 2021, RCSD would serve 1,880 pre-K students, while we would still rely heavily on our community-based organizations to serve 1,551 students is our projection. The savings for the district, $9,000 per student. $9,000 per student, times 500 students returning and keeping them here in the district, equates to $4.5 million in 1 year. The next piece is the strategic part. Our desire is to open 2 additional early childhood education centers. One would be located in each zone in the RCSD. This will result in a pre-K school in each of the 3 zones. Rochester Early Childhood is currently located in the Northeast, so we would open one in each of the other 2 zones. So looking forward, how do we rebuild the RCSD and its blueprint for fiscal stability? We have to think about how do we repurpose our current district footprint to serve and meet the needs of our existing community. So we currently have that many students serviced by community-based organizations because we literally don't have the seats or the capacity to service the pre-K students that are in the RCSD. So we evaluated our schools all across the district on a variety of factors, things like cost per student, enrollment trends at all of our schools in the district, whether they're under capacity or nearing capacity, staff per student ratios, and their accountability status. How are they performing with regards to student achievement? So the 2 buildings that we're putting forward for repurposing, reconfiguring those buildings, first is going to be Early Childhood School of Rochester, number 57. This building currently services pre-K through 2nd grade students. The building is significantly underutilized as it has only 184 students. It's presently set up nicely to accommodate young students and has the appropriate facilities necessary for our pre-K building intent. We could open 10 to 11 classrooms of pre-K students to accommodate approximately 200 pre-K students. It can be used as a pre-K building as of next year, and there are sufficient seats in existence to accommodate students within their home zone. So thinking of currently 57 is a district-wide program, this would be moving to more of that zone concept for our pre-K babies. The other school that I'm asking you to consider is Lincoln Park School number 44. This is a building that is pre-K through 6th grade. It's currently significantly underutilized with its capacity of 248 students. In our current estimate, 1st and 2nd floors of the building would be able to be utilized for pre-K classrooms. We would be able to utilize the 3rd floor space to house central office-based officials to be in the building right there with our pre-K babies and our teachers. Sufficient seats exist in that zone to accommodate students there, and we would be, it could be used as a building in 2021. The school reconfiguration that I mentioned of those 2 buildings being repurposed for pre-K capacity would result in a savings of $4.1 million. So again, I wanted to let you know that this was really not an exercise in how do we save money. This was not the exercise that we underwent for emergency needs of the district mid-year. This is really thinking long-term. It is no secret that anyone who speaks to us talks about the district footprint. With declining enrollment, how can we have the same number of buildings serving in the same capacity? So Rather than thinking of shuttering buildings and turning them over to charter schools and the like, how do we keep them within the RCSD and increase our enrollment and service our students and families in the best manner possible? So the last slide is just a quick review. Looking at the positive and financial impact to the district, not forgetting the impact on the academic accountability of our 7 through 12 facilities that remain troubled and in accountability receivership. So splitting into 7th and 8th grade and 9th through 12th into an upper-lower scenario. Thinking of getting our babies back and reversing the dramatic trends downward in enrollment. All that I have shown you today could result in $8.3 million in savings in addition to the benefits that we would achieve as a district overall.
Any questions for the superintendent? Commissioner LeBron, I'll start down this way and work my way back this way. Commissioner Shepherd, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate and make sure that my question got on the record. I did speak to you earlier, Superintendent Dade, about our community-based organizations, and I wanted to know the CBOs that hold pre-K programs, and then which ones we are considering or what you will propose that we bring in those pre-K programs into the schools. So I do want that.
Absolutely, and I thank you for that advance notice, and we weren't able to generate for today, but we'll get that list to you. I do want to say that we would be utilizing what are our most successful programs and really allowing that to drive some of those decisions. Thank you.
Commissioner LeBron?
Yeah, a couple of things. So I'm going to go back to slide 4 and I'll work down. So Franklin campus, I know that IATHS is there in Vanguard. There's also a elementary swing space there. So my ask will be to stop making that building a swing space. Even if you convert it into a Franklin upper lower, I would support that proposal. Please remove that from swing space. I think it is a terrible idea. Slide 5, I will like to personally speak with Monroe staff, that's one of my schools, just to ensure that they support this model. But I do want to bring up some of the history of this push out that we did, where we pushed out some of our elementary to have 7th and 8th, and that model just is always going to create a struggling model if we don't put proper supports in place. So I appreciate that there is conversation around potentially splitting the 2 high schools to have an upper and lower, but also looking at ways to ensure that they have the proper supports for them, because that's a big thing. Page 7, the pre-K success. For me, I definitely want to advocate to say that some of this success, or a lot of this success, not only has been the individuals involved in pre-K from the very beginning, but our community-based organizations and their partnership.
Absolutely.
And so there was some data that you mentioned about the trend, and I wanted to bring out this correlation or potential correlation to the trend that you mentioned. And part of the issues with pre-K then, and I've talked to many parents about this and why they end up leaving, so obviously charters and white flight still has an impact on this, but it's also based on how our school choice policy is set up, and pre-K is cut off from that. So they enter pre-K, whether it's a community-based organization, which again, community-based organizations are so critical to our community because they're in the community and they also provide additional supports and services that we don't. So if a parent is at a place like a community place or Baden Street and they need, you know, food and shelter and social work, case management, those services are provided on site. But also part of this, I think the trend and the data that you mentioned for the retention is that we have allowed parents to pick pre-Ks in schools that they're not in the zone for, and when they go to transfer, they can't. And it is a very frustrating process for parents when they have started at a school, and I'll give my daughter's school an example, School 15. It is a citywide school, and if you start pre-K there, you don't automatically get to go into kindergarten there, because now you have to apply for the lottery and potentially, and I think that is actually the bigger core of why we see the results that we're seeing that we should be exploring. So I wanted to put that out there. I appreciate the savings. I would like to dig into that a little bit more, not through this format, but through the finance process. And I'm going to end it at there because I have lots more, but I was unfortunately not able to make the meeting today.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. So, one, I just want to reiterate a few of Commissioner LeBron's points. The value of community-based organization is without doubt, without doubt. We also agree that there's flaws in our choice. I brought that to the board already, that we're going to come up with some considerations with regards to that. By moving to a zone concept helps address some of the issues that you addressed. By having an early childhood center in each zone may lead to, if I enroll in an education center in a particular zone, now I'm staying within that zone for K and beyond. But point well noted that there's numerous factors, so I'm not trying to say that this is going to be the magic bullet. I don't see this all of a sudden flipping to 75% for each one. There's a lot of factors that go into it. The other point that I just want to make is I'm really trying to think of creative ways to reverse the trend in enrollment that we're seeing. And what I've seen in other urban systems is the magic answer is pre-K. That's why you see so many divisions moving to universal pre-K, because they didn't know that that is the answer. If you can engage early and keep families within your school throughout, you're going to reverse that trend in enrollment. So that's something it's an attempt to really try to solve numerous concerns within the district with a few creative solutions.
I'm going to continue to move to my right. Anybody down there? Oh, I'm sorry. No, you didn't just nod or let me know that you're. No, I'm going this way. So if somebody, just to let you all know, even though I'm going this way, just nod your head or raise your hand to let me know you're going this way. So, Commissioner Adams?
Yeah, so my concern when we talk about these pre-K, the CBOs, you seem to have lumped them all together and came up with this percentage. I would prefer seeing each different CBO with their own percentage, because there may be one that's 70% of theirs are coming to the district. They shouldn't be penalized the way we're going to penalize the one that has 53% of their kids going to charter school. I think we need to just put an address on all of them for me, for my support for it. I think it's a great idea, but I just would prefer that you have an address on each of those, so that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Mr. Superintendent, you remember our inside conversation about A and E?
Yes.
Okay. So we don't want to have that scenario.
No, we don't. No, we.
Okay. So, and I'm just, let me, to Commissioner LeBron's point, I'm a strong advocate for UPK programs at CBOs. We've got a number of UPK programs at Baden Street. I'm really emotional about that because I know the work that our organizations do, and I know the hirings that we do right from the community, and we get those teachers certified. And so, we got RTA members here talking about their jobs, but I'm also looking at the jobs where we're not paying as much money as the RTA members make, and, that would be really an economic challenge for many of our people who get hired in the community. And if I'm told that Ronald Reagan said the best social services program is a job. And there's a lot that happens, so it's just not looking at the dollars or the measurements. And I know this is important, but it's far more important to have and I thought it was more efficient, cost efficient, because that's what we were told, because we don't pay, and many community-based organizations do not pay the same salaries as those teachers get here in the district, nor the benefits. And so I would have to look to see how that is more cost effective. But let me just say, it is an emotional issue for me, and so I have to, my colleagues to hold me down a little bit. But I have another question in terms of the renovations of Monroe High School and Franklin. Where is that funding coming from? Is that regular capital funding, or would that be, is there an opportunity for there to be some FMP funding in that?
My understanding is for the high school, Mr. Smith. My understanding is for the reconfiguration at Monroe and Franklin, we would not be undergoing renovations and the like. For Monroe is beautiful and ready to go. I believe Franklin is as well.
So are capital dollars needed, I guess the question is, for the recommendation that the superintendent is proposing?
So the Franklin work will be done through the Facility Modernization Program, Phase 3. We, in our plan, we have an upper and lower school concept,
Okay.
which is already in our planning.
Okay.
On the front end. For Monroe, the actual physical work is it's already set up into an upper and lower school, although it's not academically constructed that way. So there'd be very limited costs there. And then the make-ready work for the other two facilities will provide an assessment. They are depending on our timeline, if it's like for September, no capital work, you can't get anything approved. So it'll be more on the maintenance side of our house. If we have a little more time to do some longer-term work, then certainly it'll be part of our future CIPs.
Yeah. And just to again agree with Commissioner LeBron, I really don't want us to use any of Franklin as swing space anymore. I mean, that's just been,
Noted.
you know, it's sort of just been not good. I'll just leave it at that.
Sure.
So.
It's been 4 schools now, so that's certainly
Yeah,
up to date.
it's
Absolutely.
just not a good place. Yeah, thank
Okay,
you.
you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent.
Yeah.
A&E, just don't forget now.
I don't know what that means.
Commissioner Malloy, yeah.
You'll have to fill us in.
So just a couple questions. I have to agree with Commissioners Elliott and LeBron about the swing space at Franklin. I know 2 of my children experienced 2 years there while 58 was there during their renovation process, and it was a little rough. I have a question just about using the Franklin campus. The parking situation there is a bit of a nightmare. And I know for parents to access the building, it's always been a bit difficult, especially if you have like a sick child trying to get in there. Is there a plan for parking or doing any type of renovation under the capital improvements on the parking situation? Is that part of the Phase 3 modernization? Sorry, Mike.
Sorry, I was trying to solve another issue. You regard to the Franklin campus?
Yes.
Parking.
Yes, we would have to, based on the number of staff members that would be there, that would be certainly part of our modernization program work. There is 3 different lots on that campus now. We actually just added a lot there last summer, so there's more parking than there was, but if we need to add more or make some adjustments, we can certainly do that. The main part of the plan now is to add a second gym on campus, so the lower school would have its own physical education space, science rooms, and a separate entrance, so that we not, to the high school and the middle or lower school wouldn't have to come together, probably only for the cafeteria. That's the
Has
plan.
there been a study done on the traffic issues that might be created by creating this space in that manner? Just because traffic has always been an issue where I think it's Hudson and
Right.
Hudson and Clifford, is that it? Where they converge?
Right.
It's really hard to take a left into the school.
Sure.
So is there going to be a traffic study?
We, as part of our plan, we'll certainly have to do some work there in terms of working with the city and around the busy streets on North Street and also on Hudson, because that block is obviously very challenging. So with the lower school entering on the Hudson Ave side of the building, which is kind of the vision, and depending on how the times work, if we can stagger the times, that would actually take some of the pressure off. So really the options are really endless in terms of how we can make it work.
And in the swing space that's there, they had a bus loop, but that bus loop is probably far too small to accommodate the traffic.
Depending on the number of students and the type of buses that we're using for those students, then that would kind of drive what work we need to do. May need to change the entrance there a little bit or make it a little bit wider. I mean, there's a bunch of different options we'd have to consider. But number of kids, time of day, all those kind of go on the front end of it. And we'll make our swing space adjustments accordingly.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Powell?
Thank you. My first observation about the recommendation for the UPK is that I want to really commend you for bringing new eyes, particularly looking at the impact that UPK has on our elementary enrollment. That's something that no one prior to this moment, this day, has ever made that connection. And while I agree with my colleagues that parents make their pre-K choices in some cases based on services available with our agency partners, in other cases, the decision is made for them because the school that they would choose doesn't have a UPK, or they don't have a viable option within our system. So I think the ultimate goal would be for us to create spaces in every elementary school that will strand from 3-year-old UPK on to the grade 6. And so that once a family makes a choice within our school system, they're able to stay with that choice. One of the observations that Commissioner LeBron brought to the table was the fact that there's a disconnect between our UPK and kindergarten. And that is, it's unfortunate, it's true, but it is driven by the fact that New York State does not allow us to put any limitations on the enrollment of students in UPK. And so if I use the same kind of out-of-the-box thinking that you presented to us, that missing link between UPK and our elementary enrollment, I would say perhaps we need to add to our legislative agenda and ask the state to allow us to channel families into their home zone, so that in fact once they do make a choice for their UPK child, they're in the right zone, so they can stay in that school for up to the terminal grade. Without that, if a family can choose any school or any agency to put their 3 or 4-year-old in, regardless of zone, and then we are forced to make a choice, do we spend an exorbitant amount of money busing them across zones for the rest of their elementary school career, or do we exclude them from the kindergarten lottery? Those are our only choices by virtue of the way the state constructed UPK. So, and I don't see how it's tenable for us to support a system that continues to bus kids across zone. So maybe the clear answer is to lobby the state for an update to the UPK legislation that will allow us to limit families' choices through the zones boundaries. Another point that was made about UPK and their enrollment district versus charter schools is also a valid point, but that if they haven't had an experience with our system in UPK, they're not going to have a positive view of our system once they reach kindergarten. But the converse of that is true also, that every time a family has a positive experience with our UPK, they're more likely to stay with us. So it again suggests that the centers that you're describing now make sense, but I view them only as a transitional portal toward getting UPK into every single elementary school. So that leads to my one and only question about your presentation, and that is on slide 10, you outline a $9,000 per student savings. Is that over the lifetime of their elementary experience? Is that the amount saved for every child that we can bring into recruit to stay in our system, or is that just for the 3- and 4-year-old years?
That's just for UPK. I think the cumulative impact is beyond measure. So as we think of the impact of declining enrollment and what that has done to the RCSD, think of what increased enrollment might do over time. in these conversations that we're having around budget, but that's just for preschool, pre-K.
So that's a conservative estimate
That's correct.
over time.
That's right.
That's awesome, thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to move back in this direction. Let me just say, as I do that, Superintendent, your report raised a lot of issues and require the comments and questions that have been asked. I would just ask my colleagues that we not engage in extensive debate over individuals' comments. I realize there may be some back and forth, but this is, after all, the superintendent's report. There are some questions that have to be asked, and certainly many of those questions are going to have to be asked offline. But I just ask that folks keep that in mind. We have a hefty agenda, and the thing I really want to avoid is people ought to be able to speak their mind, but I want to avoid a back and forth. Well, you said this, and I said this. You can do that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be here. So having that said that, Vice President Elliott, and then I think Commissioner LeBron.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, listen, I'm moving this way now.
Oh.
Vice President Elliott?
I just want to point out to the point to what the superintendent said about having more kids in school. The issue becomes not so much that we have these kids in school, are we educated them? And normally when we bring our children into this district as genius. By the time they get to the 3rd or 4th grade, they're needing remedial assistance. That's what we have to also avoid too. So while we're keeping them in here, we have to make sure that we're getting through that 3rd and 4th grade, those grades, and that we're not preparing our children for the prison system.
That's right.
Because some kind of way, you know, we want our children in here, and I agree with that, but if we're not educating them, why should they stay?
Agreed.
Thank you.
Commissioner LeBron?
Yeah, so I just want to also go back to just the UPK, and again, I think that part of the issue is that when parents, again, enroll, it's a different enrollment process for UPK than in the district. And again, there's that disconnect within our own systems that should be explored, because parents are not understanding when they sign their 3-year-old and 4-year-old at the Y downtown, or even at 15 or at 58, that they don't get to stay there or they have to be moved around. So even with this concept of zoning in the centers, my ask is just that there is a systematic approach on how to have that upfront communication right from the very start with parents, and that our registration folks on both sides of the house are having some type of integration and conversations. The other piece is, while I would love to have UPK in every school, I do also want to acknowledge that UPK follows regulations almost similar to child care regulations, and they're much stricter than kindergarten through 12th grade education. And I think that could potentially end up costing us more if we try to build certain classrooms, or there's ratios, there's other factors at play in spaces, even the bathrooms and how the sinks are, even lighting, even the lights have to be lowered and not dark. And so I don't want to go down that realm that where we're dipping too much into the UPK regulations and accommodating our schools to that piece of it. I know that there are many schools that have made that sacrifice and are already successful in that process. But I also would like to see, as you have these conversations, and I do know that we will continue to have conversations, because there's no resolution. I won't be voting on a resolution, I will tell you right now, unless I fully understand, support it, and I know which CBOs may or may not be impacted. And again, what Mr. Adams said, I need to see the data around those schools. But that our UPK programs that are in schools, also, if we could look at how do we, because the school choice is our policy, how we make exceptions for those schools, for the parents who select a school that is, I feel like that's another option we need to also look at. You've already explored. I hear what Commissioner Powell is saying about the UPK regulations, again, say we cannot restrict parents, but we then have that school choice policy. So I feel like we also need to explore how do we look at that when parents are selecting an actual school that has a UPK program, and then it interacts and negatively impacts them through our own policy. So I don't want to go down that rabbit hole tonight too deep, too far, but I definitely want us to have these on the record and start exploring those things as well.
So these kind of dialogues really, I love this. So the quandary was declining enrollment in the RCSD for nearly 2 decades. How do we take a barrier that I see in the system off the table? And the barrier being we don't have the seats for pre-K students. So how do I take that off the table while also answering all of the very valid questions that we have on the table is what I'm excited about. So I'm trying to remove the barrier, and then I leave it to you all to ask those great questions and how I can provide the data that you need to make the most informed decision. But the barrier that I see is when I asked why don't we have more, all I heard was celebrate pre-K, we have the best, we're the best. But so how do we do more of that rather than kind of what we hear in the news and the media otherwise? So I'm excited about these ongoing dialogues. Also excited about the team and how they really thought outside the box to say, you know, how can we think differently about the way we've been doing things and operating in Rochester City School District?
So I have a question and then a comment and then a question and then a comment. What procedurally happens next? You know, we used to have what we called an Excellence in Student Achievement Committee meeting where we would vet ideas about academic proposals and so forth. We don't have that anymore. We have the whole board vetting those ideas. Very briefly, what do you see, and a number of board members have said, this is actually the very beginning of a conversation, and of course you know that. What do you see procedurally happening next? Do you see it finance, or do you see it intergovernmental? Where do you see this going next? And when would be the next time we would hear from you about fleshing this particular proposal out?
So a few things. One, we would love to have ongoing dialogues, and we need to move on this to board vote by February 27th. Okay. The reason being, as we think of different moves that need to happen by providing the state with different BEDS codes for our Monroe and Franklin families, when we think of school choice, and giving our parents the opportunity to know where the board lies so that they're making the right choice for existing students and the like. If there's any impact on teacher transfer and the like, we just owe it to everyone to make these decisions with as much deliberativeness as possible, while also knowing that if we move past February 27th, there's implications that impact our budget. You're asking for me to present the budget in a timely manner, and all of these have budgetary implications as well. So the next pieces are, we have informed the school communities that they're a topic of conversation tonight. So I've been out to School 54 personally, 57 personally. I'm having my team go out to meet with those school families on February 8th. There's also an opportunity that I would like to engage the board in of if you want to go back out to school communities to get feedback, or how might that occur, but we want to be able to let parents know directly what this means, what options might they have, all knowing that this is pending board vote on February 27th, but we can't wait that long to inform our parents that this is a topic of conversation. So those are some of the next steps, is really engaging our parents, hearing from teachers, hearing from community members and the like will be the next phase. And then answering your questions on the ongoing. I don't think we can put it in a committee, Mr. President, because there may be additional conversations that need to happen each week on this topic because they're pretty big. So
what we need to have happen is we have to at least identify. You said February 22nd.
That's correct.
Date, right?
27th.
So it's 27th. So we have to. I'm looking towards you, Ms. Wade, and your colleagues to work with the administration on identifying a date where you can we can have a progressive conversation about this idea, because there are a lot of good questions that obviously we're just hearing about this in detail now, so people need time to sort of think this through. So we're going to need staff to sort of calendar this out and map the conversations that we're going to have. I will say, this wasn't one of my comments, I am extremely glad to hear that you got to these communities in advance, because quite often what happens, I've seen it, superintendents, for whatever reason, sometimes miss that obvious thing, which is to talk to the affected communities, and they hear about it in the newspaper, and it's a complete disaster. People get a bad taste, a bad flavor, and then they're not hearing the idea. So I'm especially appreciative of the fact that you've gotten out in advance, but there's a lot of conversation, so we're going to rely on you guys to sort of map this out. our staff will communicate what that calendar looks like, and then my colleagues can sort of formulate their questions, and you can make sure that you get them the answers. So, but my other comment was there were obviously some good questions asked, and there are many more still on the table. This, from my perspective, is an idea that has obvious merit, but it's still very early for anybody to be making any decisions on. And for those students in the back, I assume you're here maybe in participation in government, checking out how government operates. What you're seeing now is the superintendent came up with an idea along with his staff, and he's saying, hey, listen, y'all need to talk about this. And what we're saying is we need dates in which to sort of figure this thing out. So that's what you're witnessing happening now. I will say to our superintendent and to his team, and maybe you students know this, we've been in the news lately, and a lot of these things are very distracting. They got us looking left and the right. And if we were in a vehicle, we wouldn't be looking forward. We'd be looking in the rear view mirror. All this stuff is happening. People talk about this district. There's very few opportunities to look forward, right? What he and his team have done is they presented an idea that says, okay, we're not going to respond to, we're going to respond to all these other issues, but we got to look forward. We got to be creative. Somebody said, you got to think out of the box. So I wanted to say to the superintendent and his team, well done in terms of, you know, when things are swirling around you, sometimes you don't look forward. You're always responding. What the superintendent and his team are trying to do is they're trying to look forward. And in government, that's sometimes a very difficult thing to do. But the superintendent and his team, they're looking forward because that's where the answers are. So I wanted to say to you, I'm communicating that to the students, but to you and your team, thank you for looking forward and not being so distracted that you can't get us to where we need to be. So thank you very much. Yes, Commissioner Shepard.
Superintendent Dade, can you talk to us about, you said the February 27th date is a date that we have to vote, but then when do we have to send paperwork to the state to be able to open up the schools?
March 1st. March 1st.
Okay. And do we anticipate that we won't have any issues with reopening?
There won't be any issues, and it was endorsed by the state. I think I can share. They expressed this morning how difficult it is for a 7 to 12 building, so they even put on the table that that's something that we should be considering.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Commissioner LeBron?
Yeah, I just want to add that if you do have meetings with the two schools and other CBOs and committees or communities that may be impacted from both, that I would love to be there and also have interactive conversations with both sides. And I say that because I've been a parent in this district with 2 school closings. I always share this one time when I literally did not drive and had to walk to work and worked overnights and was dirt poor. And then a second time when I had a little bit more resources, education, and a car and the ability to drive. And I can tell you that both are impactful to your life and your child's life. And so I would love to be a part of those conversations if you schedule those. And I would encourage you guys to schedule those. But when you do, if you could please let me know, I'll be there.
I think that's a good idea, and I would add, in addition to any board member being invited, that you particularly think about the liaisons and have your staff reach out to the liaisons to make sure that they are engaged in that conversation, because after all, for those of you who don't know, you students, each board member has a number of schools that they develop relationships with, and so it would be good if you could, with our staff, make that connection too. Of course, any board member can go to any of these meetings, but I think it would be important if the liaisons were involved. The one other thing that I wanted to say, because in this detail we can lose this, when we are so busy responding to crises, it's hard to develop any hope or belief that there's a positive future for this district. When you start being proactive and identifying initiatives and programs that aren't responsive to crises, people can get hope from that. So that's another reason why, while the verdict is still out, me and my colleagues haven't had a chance to really look at this. This is an important move. I don't want people to miss this because it gets us out of that sort of responsive mode, and it's forward thinking. So again, I can't emphasize enough. I appreciate and respect the fact that you and your team did that. Any other questions or comments?
I'd just also like to thank the superintendent as well. I know I mentioned the A&E, and that wasn't the television station, but they know. But I do thank you for all the work that you're doing and the difficult work that you and the staff are doing. And I really look at this as an opportunity. You've heard me say that before. So even with all of the criticism that we're experiencing from all of the areas out there, I think that we have an opportunity to move forward. God forbid there's no other crisis. My prayer is that there's no more crisis, that we really can get on with doing the work that we need to do on behalf of children and families. So thank you so very much for that.
Okay, we have no speakers today, so.
I don't think I've ever been here when we've had no speakers.
Yeah, it's very rare, it's very rare. And now we move on to advisory reports, our Student Leadership Congress.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Tonight I will be reporting on Student Leadership Congress January meeting. We had an amazing opportunity for the Mayor's Advisory Council, Youth Voice, One Vision to join us at our meeting yesterday. At the meeting, I discussed my participation in the state of the student and how we decided that our voices weren't heard in Governor Cuomo's proposal. So we took it in our hands to make demands on what we want from our legislators and district leaders. We spoke with students across the district, and we also held an event at Teen Empowerment to hear what the students would like from their district. At the meeting, at Student Leadership Congress, we had the opportunity to help YVOV brainstorm ideas for their conference that they're putting on for the community from a $30,000 grant they received from America's Promise. While brainstorming, we came up with multiple ideas they can incorporate into the conference. Some of the most popular ideas were managing versus dealing, panel with kids to students with real experiences, communication, interactive workshops, emotional restoration, and small groups. At the meeting, we also began to finalize the students that will be going to the Close-Up Washington, D.C. trip. This trip will be taking place April 26th to May 1st, where we will be gaining the knowledge and the skills to be active and informed citizens. Student Leadership Congress will be hosting a conference for students. We will be having leadership training in the morning with the students, then having a power lunch with community leaders. Students will also be learning a planning tool to conduct a service project after school. This will be taking place March 20th. Thank you.
Any questions for our student leader? Let me just say, I, like a lot of folks, watched, I saw you in a press conference. You did an exceptional job, and to all those students that you represent, and there were a lot of students, I know Commissioner Adams' daughters were one of the many leaders that were involved in this effort. And I just want to, on behalf of the board, want to thank you. I mean, this is sort of the easy work, but what you were doing, that's the more challenging work. And I think it's, there's been a lot of conversation about what needs to happen in this district, and it is clear that our young people were heard. And that's not an easy thing for a young person. So thank you very much. And I think we ought to give her a round. Any other comments or questions for our Student Leadership Congress? All right, next item on the agenda is Parent Advisory Council. There is no report. We did get a report from our superintendent not that long ago indicating that they were continuing to work on that effort, and we expect that sometime in the near future we'll have a PAC report, and we all are very much looking forward to that. Bilingual Council, there was an attempt to contact them. They're usually extremely very reliable and are always at our meetings, but it doesn't look like they're here today. We'll follow up on that and find out what happened. Next item on the agenda is the President's report. I don't really have one extensively other than to greet Mr. Franklin and Ms. Quick. Both of you, on behalf of the board, bring extensive public service experience, and I want you to know that we are extremely appreciative of your bringing that experience to bear on our district and assisting us as we continue, I would emphasize the word, continue to bring improvement to the students of this district. So everybody want to join me in welcoming them to our district. And that would conclude my report, so I'll begin with policy. I'm the chair of policy. I don't have a report. Oh, I'm sorry. She reminds me there is a report in here. Give me a second. I'm just trying to delay for time. It's on top? Nope. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, to make it easy, You all probably have your copies, and I'm going to submit my report to you all in writing. I don't see it here, but that's okay. I'm submitting my policy report in writing, and so we'll move on to governance. Governance Committee, do you have a report?
Yes, so we met on Tuesday, January 21st. We discussed three main items. The committee began with a presentation on super eval, which was conducted by Mr. Michael Horning. Super eval is a tool utilized by school districts to conduct the superintendent evaluation process. And as much as we'd love to just say you're Superman, we have to use some evidence. Yes. So this helps us drive important and meaningful conversations between the school board and our superintendent, and it promotes a goal-oriented, reflective, and evidence-based evaluation process by aligning the superintendent's goals and driving a performance-based evaluation to advance the district's goals. While the board has utilized super eval for superintendent evaluations for some time, Tuesday's presentation acquainted new school board members with the interface and provided a soft training to all utilizing the tool. The board will be utilizing super eval not only for the superintendent's annual evaluation, but also for the board's annual self-evaluation as recommended by NYSBA, or the New York State School Boards Association. Second on the list at our committee, we then moved forward on the development of the school district's mission statement. Board members reviewed our parent feedback from the annual Family Engagement Day, which was on November 23rd, and together decided on a comprehensive district mission. This verbiage will be forwarded back to the superintendent's office for final consideration. The development of an aligned mission and vision was recommended by the distinguished educator in his original report. And finally, the committee reviewed the board standards of conduct as proposed in appendix to the Code of Ethics, Policy 2160. This discussion was intended to be continued at our January 28th special meeting. And our next governance committee meeting is going to be Tuesday, March 10th at 5:30.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy. I did find the policy committee report dated January 23rd. Thank you, Ms. Wade. Again, for the sake of efficiency and time's sake, I'm just going to submit that as it is in writing. And the other thing is, when we used to have committees, they were made up of 3 board members apiece. We've since moved to committees of a whole. So what is in this written report, most board members are aware of because all board members were at these meetings. So I'm just going to submit the written report. Next committee report would be Finance and Resource Allocation. Commissioner LeBron.
I'm sorry, did you say something?
What's that? Oh, yeah, well, that's, we're going to discuss that at the end of the agenda, right? Yeah, new business. Yep, I got that.
Okay, well, thank you, Kalia. Kalia was trying to flag folks down over there. So let me get my stuff out so first and foremost, we have a number of finance reports that are going to be up to date. Do I approve that through here, this process now? So do I ask for the motion? So I'm going to ask for a motion for the January, I'll work backwards. The December, there's one for October, through December quarterly change report, the November report, the December report, and then January 14, 2020 report, and September, and October. So lots of reports that we have to go back. I do want to note that in my first finance meeting as the chair, the one specific ask that I had on these reports is that Terry actually signs off as the person that these are from, particularly because although the numbers, I do agree with the numbers, they're pretty black and white in terms of where the deficits lay in different departments and areas. I had an issue with the accountability piece because at the end of the day, if there is an error on this, it falls on the superintendent because we didn't have a CFO, in my view. So I did ask Terry, and he did sign off. If you look at those reports on the from subject, Terry initialed all of them, and I appreciate that and dated them. That gives me clarification. that he agrees with these numbers, he's read them, and he's going to stand behind them, just in case there's any errors a few months from now. So that's why these reports are coming forth this way. So can I have a motion to approve September, October, November, December, and January 2020? Oh, not January yet.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Did you get so who motioned, who second? Thank you. So, the Finance Committee,
Motion to
can we get a
approve
vote? I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
And I'm a no.
Motion to approve the quarterly change order report?
thank you. And a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm a no.
Okay, and so the Finance Committee convened as a whole on Tuesday, January 14th. The committee commenced with a check-in with the district administration regarding the lobbying event in Albany earlier that morning. Superintendent Dade noted that 2 key asks were made: an urgent need for $25 million in emergency funding to close the financial gap for the current year, and an increase in foundation aid shared for RCSD for 2021 and beyond. The committee was formally introduced to Mr. Robert Franklin, the district's new CFO. The committee then fielded a financial update presentation from Superintendent Dade, and during this presentation, the superintendent reviewed the deficit reduction plan for 2019-20 and proposed actions to address the structural budget deficit. Finally, Superintendent Dade provided a timeline of next steps. The committee again reviewed the district's unaudited September, October, and November 2019 financial reports, which were updated to include sign-offs from the superintendent. Additionally, the committee received the district's December 2019 finance report and the 1920 quarterly change order report from October to December, and the Finance Committee recommends approval of the district's unaudited September, October, November. We did that already. So the committee reviewed an updated draft of the key dates for the 2020-21 budget review process. This calendar essentially details the dates for events during the upcoming budget season, including budget forums, the superintendent's budget presentations, and the dates for budget adoption, both here and at the district and with City Council. Notable changes to the budget calendar include the addition of a budget town hall information session on February 20th and March 25th. And so those town halls are intended to provide the public with a general overview of the district's budget and funding streams, and then we'll explore the 2021 budget once presented. So I just want to add that on February 20th, the intention of that budget town hall meeting is to go over our Rochester City School District budget, how to read it, review it, look for answers, and how we compile that. There are some changes that I did make a request in, also how our schools are listed. So I asked that in the middle portion of our budget book that our schools are then labeled as zones and then put in order from the zones, because I was trying to go back and look for a school, and I was like, why is this not tabbed off by zone if we look at schools at zones? So I did request that change, and there are some other changes that myself and the new CFO discussed, potentially putting together kind of a Cliff's Notes version of our budget and some real big highlights, and also some visuals on how we spend our dollars so that anybody can pick that up and read it and have a general understanding of how our dollars are spent within the district, and then note where to find that in the actual budget book in case anybody wants to dive deeper into that information. And then the March 25th date will be held specifically by then. Our school budget shall be out by then, and that will be an opportunity to have roundtable discussions for this community around anything that is being proposed or changed within the budget, minus the superintendent's presentation proposals today, because this is not going through the normal budget process. So I just want to throw that out there, because if we have to vote on February 27th, by March 25th, this decision would have already been made. So it's any additional cuts and changes that the superintendent is proposing through the budget process. So we will not be hosting the 2-minute piece where folks from the community come out here for 2 minutes and ask some really great questions, which oftentimes we cannot answer or engage. I want the March 25th to be an engaging process for the community to come in with questions and ideas and be able to walk away with some answers. And oftentimes there are great ideas that we can't legally move forward with for a whole variety of reasons. And I always feel that people are always left with unanswered questions during that process. And it's very frustrating for me too. So I really want the March 25th to be a very engaging process. The budget will have been out already by then, and it will allow the community some time to review it, digest it, and come in with their questions, and for us to all have honest, open dialogue about the budget. So those are two of the biggest key changes in our budget process this year. And depending on what's going on, we may add another one if need be, but this is where we're starting at right now. And that concludes my entire finance report. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner LeBron.
Good job, Commissioner, on your first report as Finance Chairman. Great.
All right. Next item on the agenda is consideration resolution. Before we do that, on the finance side, and sometimes I've noticed what has happened over various superintendents is an accepted practice, one superintendent will do it, and then the next superintendent won't. One, I think, good practice in the budget book was to make sure that you provide some assessment as to whether they're producing on the goals, whether we're getting a bang for our buck, whether we're getting return on investment. There should be some recognition in the budget about whether we're, again, getting a return on investment. I don't know how you want to structure that. There have been some years where we'll have one superintendent and they'll put it in there, and then the next budget year it won't be in there. But, I don't know how you want to structure that, how you want to articulate whether we're getting a return on investment, but I would appreciate seeing that, particularly on the programmatic side. All right, so next item on the agenda is consideration of resolutions. We will begin with human resource resolutions. Strike that. We'll consider resolution 604. Yes. What's that? Okay. All right. The first thing I wanted to say is, as I attempt to make my way through this, I want you all to realize that I'm going to attempt on occasion to sort of cluster, or what Commissioner Cruz used to say, bundle them. It is my best effort. If you think that doesn't make sense, feel free to interject and say, Van, why don't we do it this way? I also will try to attempt to ask when I put a series of resolutions out there or ask for a motion, if someone will need to go into executive session on it. Again, no harm in you interrupting and saying, oh, hey, listen, we're going to need to go into executive session, because some of these you might very well have a need to discuss a particular personnel matter. You also might, as we go through these, might feel a need to offer an amendment. And if that amendment has to be made and one of the resolutions is contained in one of those bundles, just say, hey, Van, can we sort of call that one out? So again, what I'm attempting to do is group some of these. So it looks like, give me 1 second here. I think I'm going to begin with 605, all right? And that relates to the granting of tenure to a particular employee or employees. Unless I hear someone say, hey, Van, I need to go into executive session on that, I'm going to ask for a motion to move the conversation on 605. Vice President Elliott has made that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded by Commissioner LeBron. Any questions or comments regarding Resolution 605? There being no questions or comments, all those in favor of Resolution 605 say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Next, we're going to discuss Resolution 607. This is a resolution relating to the appointment of a educator in a tenured probationary area for a probationary period. Is there anybody who needs to go into executive session on that? I don't see such a motion. So can I get someone to move 607?
So moved.
Been moved by Commissioner Malloy. Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner LeBron. Any questions or comments regarding Resolution 607? There being no questions or comments, all those in favor of Resolution 607 say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Can I get a motion to discuss resolutions unless there is some reason to discuss these matters in executive session, or unless there is an amendment? Can I get a motion to move Resolutions 610 and 611?
So moved.
Been moved by Commissioner Malloy. Is there a second?
Second.
And seconded by Commissioner LeBron. Any questions or comments regarding Resolution 610 or 611?
Yes, 611.
Do you feel a need to?
No.
No, that's contract substitute.
Yeah,
You
but
got an executive session?
no.
Okay.
I do have a question about
all
this
right.
resolution, but not the individual.
All right.
Nothing related to the individual. I did see earlier, one of Commissioner Elliott's questions had to do around the substitute and the tenure piece, and I just need to understand why we would contract a substitute in a tenure area when we have teachers that are childhood education 1 through 6 who are on a recall list. So I'm just confused about that. So Harry, you're up, and I apologize that that was not something I caught earlier. I just happened to read some of the answers, which I'm going to be questioning some of these answers too, but.
Good evening, Commissioners, and no problem whatsoever. First and foremost, the reason it's a contract substitute is because the position is encumbered. So what that means is that there is a teacher that is out on a leave, so therefore we cannot give the teacher a probationary appointment. Secondly, this teacher has been recalled from the Pell list, and again, from the time period again is until the end of this the June 31st date. So.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments regarding Resolution 610 and 611? There being no further questions or comments, all those in favor of Resolution 610 and 611 say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, the ayes have it. I need a motion to discuss Resolution 616 to 620. Is there a motion?
So.
Commissioner LeBron, seconded by Commissioner Adams. Any questions or comments regarding Resolution 616 to 620? Yeah, I did, 616 to 620. I'm doing it by topical area. No further questions, no comments. All those in favor of Resolution 616 to 620 say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
No to 619.
Thank you, Commissioner Shepard. You recorded that, Madam Clerk? All right, next item on the agenda is Resolution 622. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Been moved by Commissioner LeBron, seconded by Commissioner Powell. Any questions or comments regarding Resolution 622?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So, and I submitted the question, but some of these, let me just say, I did submit questions today, so I do apologize that they came in today and probably staff were trying to answer them before this meeting as quickly as possible. I just need clarification on why we would have a resolution amendment for someone, so like the last resolution where it says 2019-2595, it's a recall from Pell, amend to correct tenure area for someone. But then also there was a remove from the preferred eligibility list due to retirement for someone else. And that one in particular, I didn't understand why that would go through resolution. If someone retired, wouldn't we just automatically take them off of the recall list, and why that would come to the board? I was confused about that. If we could speak a little bit on that, Harry. So I apologize, there's two, so we'll start with the recall.
I mean, basically, whenever an individual comes to the board in a previous resolution, in order to amend it or to adjust it, we have to bring it back to the board. Now, that's just been our process that we've been using, so that you see the changes that we're making. So that's just been our process.
So even if they're retiring, wouldn't we get a resolution for them to retire, and then you guys would automatically just remove them from that recall list because they're retired?
We could do that, but again, trying to transparent, as far as transparency, letting you know what we're doing when we're doing it. We can have further conversations about it if you like, but it's just been a process that we've been using for years.
Okay.
Okay.
And then the amendment to correct the tenure piece, why would that happen or occur through this process too?
And which one are you referring to?
The last one, 595, after 2019-20, 595. I'm not going to say the individual's name,
yes,
but
okay.
it just states.
So in essence, again, we were adjusting the elementary tenure to a remedial reading tenure. In many cases, individuals have dual certification. So again, changing and adjusting accordingly.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mary.
I'm sorry. No further questions or comments regarding Resolution 622? All right, then all those in favor of Resolution 622 say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? There's no opposition, so that means that resolution passes. Can I get a motion to move Resolution 624 and 625?
So moved.
And moved by Commissioner Malloy. Is there a second? Commissioner LeBron. Any questions or comments regarding Resolution 624 to 625?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Me too. Again, sorry, Harry.
No,
Superintendent, you're gonna have Harry answer these so he can come right back up. So. I know. I should have said, wait a minute, hold up, Harry, don't leave just yet.
No problem.
So, I really just had a question, and this is probably for both of you, but the recall, the number of people being recalled in these positions, I just needed to understand why they're being recalled. And does this mean that these are folks coming back into the district from the recall list that we're putting back into positions? But in addition to that, that then leads me down the path of how many people in total were then laid off. I just need a follow-up, and that could be a board log question.
That's fine.
I know you're not gonna be able to answer that today.
Well, I could.
Oh,
but-
okay, well, go ahead, Harry, okay, let's
But I won't.
Oh,
No.
okay.
No, but seriously though, the fact that you see these people being recalled, there's a tremendous amount of attrition that occurs. So while you're staffing, you're also losing people, retirements and resignations. In this one board document alone, you're going to see roughly between 50 or 20 people that have either made the decision to retire or resign. So while we're constantly trying to be mindful of our RIFs and making the financial gains that Terry has asked us to do with the layoffs, we still have schools that have needs. So in essence, again, these resignations require us to staff a building so that they do have a bona fide certified teacher in front of our students as we continue to try to teach them to learn.
Okay, I literally just wanted to understand that, but I will be supporting, so.
Okay.
I have a follow-up question to that.
Commissioner Shepherd.
In regards to that list, are we able to see that? Is that something that has to be requested by the full board, the recall list? Can we legally
I will
see
refer that to council, but I mean, the RIF list,
Because it has the dates that people go onto
Yeah.
the list, right?
And actually, I mean, the people that were RIF were on a previous board resolution. So again, if you want to see who was on our Pell, I mean, again, yeah, okay.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Any further questions regarding Resolution 624 and 625? There being no further questions or comments, all those in favor of Resolution 624 to 625 say aye. Aye. Any opposition? All right. Need a motion to move Resolution 629 to 634. Those appear to be additional pay resolutions.
So moved.
And moved by Commissioner Malloy. Is there a second? Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Adams. Any questions or comments regarding Resolution 629 to 634?
Yes, oh.
Yes, Commissioner Shepherd.
So for 629, I would like to know how effective is Saturday school when it comes to Regents review sessions? I know this says that we hold 75 slots for students, but in the past I've heard that Saturday school is not well attended. So I wanted to know in particular, for this particular one, have students signed up and what is the expectation around filling the 75?
Good evening, Commissioners. Dr. Peluso is not here, so I will answer a bit of that because Edison went through this process as well. And you're correct that Saturday school has low enrollment, but we still register as many as we can. And then at the end of the cycle, we look at how many students attend as well as how they did on the Regents. And so we certainly can get you the actual number of students who are registered, and then at the end, the attendance of those students.
Okay. And then my last question for 629 is where it has the certified budget line balances, it has two numbers there. So I was just wondering what that actually means.
Because it's coming out of two different budget lines, and some are for teachers and some are for administrators.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Commissioner LeBron?
So, and I submitted this in writing too, and the response was, where division chief is listed, again, I'm gonna make the request, Terry, that your name is put on there as the superintendent versus your chief of staff. And I have many reasons why, but I definitely have to state that for me, your name should be there because we don't have a division chief. That was one of the questions I asked. And for me, it has to go back to you at the end of the day, because if something comes up with issues around these particular ones, the accountability is going to be on this board first and then you second. And so I would just like that those have a friendly amendment to have your name listed as the person making the request as the division chief. And we can talk in executive a little bit more about my reasons behind it. I don't want to have that conversation here, but I just want to make sure that if we can amend those. Do I have to make a request for an amendment? Yeah, so
If you're
can I have a
amending
oh.
If you're amending the resolution, yeah.
Yeah, I would like to amend the resolutions, and let me look at the numbers here where they start. 633, I believe, is where it starts. So 633, A, B, C, D, no, A, B, D, E. So I would like to make an amendment that those division chiefs that the name is updated to Terry. Sorry, Terry. There's an
I'm on
accountability
everything,
piece.
so don't worry about me none.
There's been a motion made by Commissioner LeBron. Is there a second? Commissioner Shepard has seconded it. Any questions or comments regarding Commissioner LeBron's proposed amendment, substituting the chief's name for, substituting the superintendent's name for the chief's name? Any comments or questions about that?
Yeah, why is that? Oh,
No, no, go
Why
ahead.
is that, that you want to put that person's name, the superintendent's name in that position?
Just in lieu of,
A different, okay.
Right.
So you'll be okay if I vote no, because I don't know anything
Yeah.
about the conversation?
Yeah.
Did you want to respond to that, or?
no, it's just, I mean, with the absence of a deputy, we have Deputy Quick here now. It just makes sense, and without her here, you can substitute my name. Let's keep it moving.
Okay, all right.
It's an accountability piece.
Any further questions or comments? All right, let's, oh, yes, Commissioner Shepard.
This is a question and a comment. So I'm going to be voting no on 629 through 634 today, only because I am still uncomfortable with the language of these resolutions where it says, if a pay rate is incorrectly stated, the actual rate of pay established through the collective bargaining process shall prevail. The board authorizes the administration to revise pay rate and spending in the event that a pay rate is superseded by change to the collective bargaining agreement or the pay rates of the assigned personnel. So my concern is that I'm okay with authorizing the changes, is that we make decisions based off of what we see here with the budget lines and how much it will cost. And if there is a change, what will that look like in regards to the language we put in here, where we would either be notified or have to vote again? So I'm not really sure which would be the easier lift. I haven't figured that out yet. So I did want to put that on the record again, that I'm not comfortable with saying that, because then, you know, if the numbers are off, they would have been off and we wouldn't have known. And not saying that you guys would be doing that, but I just want to have more confidence in the language here. So I'll continue to think about what would be a change, but tonight, that's going to be the reason why I'm voting no on them.
So what we have to do procedurally, we have to vote on Commissioner LeBron's amendment. That's what's on the floor now. So, no, that's all right. That's all right. No, that's all right. Any further comments with respect to Commissioner LeBron's proposed amendment? There being none, all those in favor of the amendment proposed by Commissioner LeBron say aye. Aye. Any opposition? All right, the ayes have it. All right, so again, returning to resolutions 629 to 634 that have already been moved. Any further questions or comments about those resolutions as amended? There being no further questions or comments, all those in favor of resolution 629 to 634 say aye. Aye. Any opposition?
No for me.
And
Oh, this is for the additional pay?
yes.
Oh, yeah, you know me.
I
No.
was waiting. I was waiting. I knew it didn't.
Oh, yeah, no.
Okay, so you got two noes.
Natalie threw me off, so that's,
Usually you're the only one.
I'm the only one.
All right, so the ayes still have it. Let's move on to resolution 635 to 636. Is there a motion? All right, thank you, Commissioner LeBron. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy. Any questions or comments regarding what appear to be final pay and amendment to an
Yes.
issue of noted or bonds?
Yeah, so, Mr. President,
Yes, ma'am.
can we have, Mr. Superintendent, someone to clarify for me, Resolution 636?
Yep.
That was somewhat unclear.
Yeah, us too.
Okay. So if that could be clarified, what the ask is? Okay. Yeah.
It's the same reimbursement. Yeah, it's the same person yesterday.
Good evening again. Okay, Resolution 636, as we discussed on Tuesday, and we outlined the figures so they're a little more precise based on this resolution, based on the one from previously. We have a debt limit of $19.6 million. Our previous CIP was $16,380, which means we still have a delta of about $3,310,000 by which we can still borrow and still be under our debt limit for this year. We are proposing an additional borrowing of 1.578, and that is mainly due to four different projects: 19, 46, School 20, and School of the Arts. There are significant items in each one of those projects that, because of the current bid environment, have fallen out of the projects, and this would provide us to be able to take on all the baseline bids and as many alternates as possible to bring those projects to closure.
So with regard to the information after the resolve, funding and budget code, we don't have any information listed there because this is borrowing from the city?
Exactly. So we consulted with the city prior to bringing this amendment back to you today, so they are in support of it. So with your passage this evening, just like the normal CIP process, with your passage this evening, it will go to council in February, and the contractors have agreed to hold their bids for 45 days, which will allow us to still award the work right after the February council meeting if the process flows the way we're describing it.
All right. Commissioner Shepard?
So can you talk to us about the work that's going to be done at Flint Street, the rec center?
So the rec center...
Why we would be borrowing for that work?
So we've consistently, over the last several years, done work at the rec centers. It's eligible for 98% reimbursement, so it's good public policy. And because those rec centers are attached directly to our schools, so we're using them for physical education and other areas, our students are taking full advantage of those renovated areas. So locker rooms, the gymnasium areas, some of the common area spaces, whatever we're choosing to do in those recreation centers, in a sense, is an extension of the school. So that's why so mainly at 19, it's all of our locker room areas. It's some work in the gymnasium area. It's some work in the common areas that are shared by the school and the 19 school and the Flint Street Center.
Commissioner LeBron?
Yeah, so I guess that for me, I think I missed the fact that Flint Street was connected to school number 19. I may have a different rec center in my mind, but we also pay and have contracts to utilize these rec centers. So I know we had an offline conversation around this resolution, but I did not realize that this is how it was written. So for me, I do have a problem with us continually for us to borrow the money to fix and fund rec centers for the city to then turn around and charge us contracts to utilize those same rec centers during the day. And in addition, at school number 9 right now and the Baden Street Rec Center, it's come to my attention that we've been charged extra for having, you know, some of our students who are from other colleges who are coming to provide additional programs and services. And I brought this up before. In addition to that, we then also have to pay a larger portion of the RG&E and so forth. So I have my own issues around how this is all unfolding, but in addition, the fact that we have a deficit, this is the time for us to really look at all of these contracts and the things that we have fun. And I hear what you're saying, it's a historical practice, but we've had some bad historical practices, so I just have to say that. So I have some concerns around that. And in addition, I would be willing to not vote on this today, because I'm not going to be comfortable voting on this, until I see exactly how much money each project is getting and for what. For me, it would need to be a little bit more detailed than what this resolution is presenting today. So I just want to throw that out there. So I will vote no on it today, but if it's on hold and I can get that detail, then I may change my vote depending on those details.
The CIP documents from last year's budget and this year's budget outline specifically all the work done in all the different sites, whether it's a rec center or a school building. So those dollars are already identified. So we cannot use the dollars for anything else but the work that's already come to bid. So it's not like it's flexible money that can be utilized anywhere else. And the projects have been specifically outlined in both budget years.
But this is a request for an increase in the bond, is that correct?
That's correct. We would have borrowed up to that dollar limit before, so that it's not so much the borrowing, it's that when we have a delta because we pulled out school number 44, strategically that we can close out these 4 jobs in full and not have to go back and revisit those. That's really the purpose behind this. So the $1.5 million is spread over 4 schools. School number 20, school number 46.
But to pay for what? I guess that's not connecting for me. To pay for what then, if it's already from last year's bond?
So the Flint Street Rec Center, we borrowed the money for in the previous year's budget, or set it aside, maybe that's a better way to say it. So this year's budget document, school 12, the Douglas Center, was identified as the rec center, and we have money set aside in this year's CIP for the work that's going to be done next summer. And that's how traditionally we've done that piece of work for those rec centers. So providing you the actual specifications about what the bid documents are.
But why would we, right, but this is a bond increase, so where would, it's not connecting for me. I know, okay. It's not connecting for me.
I can
Maybe it'll connect for other commissioners and they can vote on it, but it's just not connecting for me why we have a bond increase, and then to do what specifically, and if it was in last year's projects and last year's bonds and bids, why is it coming forth now and today?
Because we're doing the work this summer.
Right, but wouldn't this have already gone through previous resolutions through a bond?
It was, part of this was in your resolution that you passed in December.
Right, but this is an increase to what we already passed.
That's right. So
what are we using the increase for?
I can provide you the bid documents. I couldn't identify exactly what parts of it are coming in over bid, but for example, the HVAC at School of the Arts, that's a very large job, and so there are parts of that are coming in over bid, so that's why we're coming up short. And we're either going to have to take out baseline work, or we have an opportunity to finish the work in full. So I think the only other urgency part is if we don't hit this timeline, or pick a reasonable timeline not to get it to City Council in February, the contractors won't hold their bids, and we'll probably be more behind the 8 ball going forward. So, like I said, the bid documents are public and transparent. I can provide those to you if you'd like to.
Yeah, I would love to bring it back next week. It would be too detrimental not to have this passed, so let's punt until next week to get everyone the information that they need, because we need to utilize the funds that we've set aside. It's not additional funding that we're borrowing against, but I want to make sure everyone's answers are fully satisfied. So,
Commissioner Adams had a question. So
it's just kind of confusing for me. I'm just like what you're explaining now, and what I'm reading here is the reason for the increase is because of chronic labor shortages, due to market conditions observed. I don't understand that language. That language is like confusing me. What kind of chronic labor shortage? I know a whole bunch of people who need jobs.
Right.
I don't know if that's what it was. I don't know. I don't understand the language.
Right, so the contractors bid the work based upon the labor force that they have available to them. And among other things, supplies, materials, there's a bunch of different variables that go into why these bids have come in higher this year versus in past years. There's a lot of work out there, so there's a lot of people that are already working in these particular areas. So I can't speak to all the different variables. We just try to give you an array of variables that kind of go into this on the front end.
So it was under budgeting? Maybe.
Well, the budget has been set. The bids have come in over budget. So if we don't receive the additional funds, then we're going to have to reduce the work.
All right.
We won't ever go over budget.
Commissioner Shepard?
I just want to be very clear about where I stand on how we bid and the contracts that come through, and I know we're going to wait another week, but it's just for the contractors out there and for you guys to take this message back. You know, you said that we typically do 19.6 million that we were going to bond out for, but since we took 44 out, that left us a little delta is what you call it. You know, we were able to net some money on that. But then, ironically, people put in bids that get us right back up to 19. Like, I just have a problem with that. I'm just going to continue to keep an eye out on that, but...
The contractors wouldn't know that.
But so then how does it come out to be the exact same price? Like, that's problematic for me. And so I just want to put that on the record that I'm going to continue to look at that. And it'll probably be a no for me when I see stuff like that happens, because it just does not work out that way. And I just don't feel right about how these bids come through if we're going to continue to see stuff like this.
Like I said, in a normal year, if the projects came in over bid, we would not do the work. Because we have an opportunity this year, because we have some money under our borrowing, that's why we brought this today. So if the vote is no, then it doesn't go to council, and we don't do the full amount of work. That's really as pretty straightforward as that. The bids are in, the bids are a public bid, and it's the lowest responsible bidder.
So, Commissioner Powell?
I didn't want to cut you off.
Oh, no, I was going to try to move the conversation forward. Go ahead.
So the only thing I want to add to this part of the conversation is that I agree with Commissioner LeBron about the dynamic between the city and ourselves, between chargebacks, for operational chargebacks versus us borrowing to fix their part of the buildings. But it's kind of a separate conversation, and that until and unless this body gets behind the notion of renegotiating a fiscal independence agreement with the city, I don't think we're going to be able to resolve those issues, because it all feeds into a larger whole. You know, every one of these, the dynamics of that chargeback conversation is part and parcel of a larger conversation about how the city treats us as a dependent versus an independent governmental agency.
So for transparency purposes, we've already begun the work at the Flint Street Center. The bids are already in. You've already actually authorized that with the previous CIP. This is what I'm going to show you tomorrow is what the segment of this 1.5 that's going to 19, or the 19 campus, the School of the Arts campus, and so forth. But you've already allocated money for work at the Flint Street Center. So it's a percentage of that 1.5 divided by those particular schools.
Okay, so this is where I see we're at. Commissioner LeBron and others have some concern about Resolution 636. Is that right? We're not talking about 635.
I just needed clarity.
Right. So this is what I want to do, since there are some outstanding questions or concerns, and I've spoken to the superintendent. He doesn't have a problem with putting this off until 6:36, until next Tuesday. I've already been informed that's a light agenda. So, Carl, I know you're busy taking notes, but you're a parliamentarian. Can I ask someone to make a motion to withdraw the prior motion?
Motion to withdraw.
I just want to make sure our parliamentarians, so in other words, the motion was.
The table would be a motion that takes precedent, you can consider it, write it down.
So all I'm trying to do is separate 635 from 636. What's the
motion to table?
Motion to table.
Automatically do that.
Okay.
All that would remain would be 635, and then you would vote on it.
Okay, all right. So I need a motion to table Resolution 636.
Motion to table 636.
Thank you, Commissioner Braun, seconded by Commissioner Adams. Before we vote on that, a motion to table goes directly to a vote. I want to take our advisory vote. I want to apologize to Ms. Spencer. We've not always taken our advisory votes, and my apologies. We need to begin that practice. And when I don't do it, Ms. Spencer, you remind me that you are here not only to give a report, but to offer up an advisory vote. So, Ms. Spencer, how do you vote on the motion to table Resolution 636?
Aye.
That's good. That's very good. Excellent. All those in favor of tabling Resolution 636, say aye. Aye. Any opposition? The ayes have it. We're tabling it for a date certain, by the way, which will be next Tuesday. The date is? Tuesday is? That's all right.
Tuesday is the 28th.
28th. All right. So that was the motion. That's the motion that passed. So that gives the administration some time to respond. Now, what is left is Resolution 635. Thank you, Mr. Kristoff. Any questions or comments, further questions or comments regarding Resolution 635? There being no further questions or comments, all those in favor of Resolution 635 say aye. Aye. Oh, sorry. I need to take an advisory vote first from our student rep. Ms. Spencer, what is your advice that you give the board with respect to Resolution 635? That makes sense. All right, now I want to take that vote from the rest of the board. All those in favor of Resolution 635 in light of our advisory vote, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? I said aye, but
No. What are we talking about? Which one?
635.
Okay.
I have one no. Is that right? All right, the ayes have it. I'd like to next bundle, if you will, Resolution 637 to 660. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And moved by Vice President Elliott. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner
You don't want to
LeBron.
bundle?
I have questions, but I'll.
That's right. That's fine.
Yeah, I
All
have
right.
questions too.
So that motion has been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments regarding any of the resolutions between 637 and 660?
Yes.
Commissioner LeBron?
Well, first of all, I see 637, and I want to thank the Eastman School of Music, but also congratulate while we're here, our marching band, the Rochester Pride. So I just want to give them a quick little shout out. But in these resolutions, number 640 was one of the questions that I submitted in writing earlier, but it has to do with the two plans that are being proposed for retiree insurance. The Medicare Advantage plan, so I'm assuming that is for qualifying retirees who are eligible for Medicare. This is the 226 would be covering their supplemental, like C and D. Is that what we're covering for them? And then also, I thought we were self-insured, so I didn't know if that extended over to retirees or if this is a new process that you guys are putting in place. I needed some more clarity around that. 640.
So again, good evening. As far as being self-insured, so retirees who are under 65 have always been self-insured in the self-insured plan. Retirees over 65 are not self-insured. Okay, so those are the folks that are covered by Medicare as well as Medicare Advantage plans. I'm sorry, what was your other question, Commissioner?
Well, the self-insured piece for us is this how the district has always done it? So these are for over 65, then we pay the $226.30 per participant, and we're paying for Medicare Advantage. Is that for Medicare Part C and D?
Yeah. So again, this is how we've always done it, okay, as far as I'm aware of.
Yeah.
As far as so what I would have to do is I can get clarity on that one because I know you did submit a board question.
Yeah.
So I'll get clarity on that one for you.
I would just like to know what portion of Medicare
yes,
we're paying C and D, or if
whatsoever.
this is a supplemental to what C and D, because the individuals have to pay for C and D. So if we're paying the $230.20 we're paying 226.30, and then individuals also have to pay for the C and D. I would like to understand what we're paying for then.
Okay, I'll get clarity for you and put in the board question that you asked for. Thank you.
Commissioner Shepard?
So since we're on 640, I'll just start with that one. Is the only qualifying factor for the participants that we're covering on here, which is estimated 3450, is the only qualifying factor the age, or are there other qualifying factors? That's the only qualifying factor? Oh,
Mr. Kennedy, because these proceedings are being recorded, you have to just provide the answer to the mic. Thank you.
And again, it's age as well as length of service. But again, what I will do is I'll qualify all of that in the response, because it is a board question, and put that in the response for us.
okay, and then the other question that can come into the response regarding that is the estimated 3450 of the participants. That includes the total year where you have looked at everybody in the district and thought about if they were retired. Okay, just want to make sure.
Mr. President?
I did want to ask that we go into executive session for 6:39.
6:39. Okay.
And then my last comment is I also wanted to thank Kodak for covering the cost for us to host there.
I'll just keep on working my way
Yeah,
down
I'm
this
sorry.
way.
I just,
Commissioner-
since
sorry.
we're going through the 620, I just have
Yeah,
one more on
sure.
647. So 647, this agency has come up before where, is it no, wait, I apologize, not 647. It's the one right after, so I apologize. 648 has come before the board through resolution as a consultant that we've hired or have had a contract with them. And although this one is for a donation piece, I did have some concerns about passing a resolution for donated services when we may potentially have a contract with them. And if there is a way that we're going to be able to track what is actually a donation of their time versus under their contractual, so we've seen these resolution before with them. So I just want to ask that question.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This is a new practice that we're doing, so we've entered into an MOU with North Star Rites of Passage, which was required for our MBK Fellows Grant. So this is the portion in which, and you'll see one come up for the City of Rochester also. We had to have the City of Rochester and a community partner who's worked with us previously on this do the MOU in order to qualify for the grant.
Yeah, but, so that agency that, we've had resolutions where we have hired them before. So is that, and I'm pretty sure that was within the last year, and I can go back and check.
Oh, I know.
Or make a request,
We
but.
have.
Yeah, so we have a contract with them, and then they're also providing donation services. How do we know what mechanisms are in place to understand what is the donated time versus the time we're paying for and the outcomes for each side?
So
I'm sorry.
it's a MOU. I know we're using the word donation because MOUs, of course, have no cash value to them. So as I said, in order to qualify for the second round of the MBK Fellows Grant, we had to have an MOU with the City of Rochester and North Star because they were also the same agency that we applied for the first cycle of the grant and are also providing the membership for the MBK Fellows. So that is why this has come up now, whereas in the past, MOUs did not come before the board, if that makes sense. So their time is separated because currently this is all that they're doing. So when they
So their contract that we've had before through resolution has ended?
Yes.
We're not paying them
Currently-
anymore for
currently-
services?
Currently, we're not.
Okay.
That's not to say it won't be forthcoming in the future, but currently we're not. So there's a specific role that they have for outlined in this grant, right? That includes steering committee meetings, which they've attended, and also includes the book study with the fellows, which is also, happens every month. And we keep track of that time, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay with that.
Any other, Commissioner Powell?
Thank you. I want to thank Keisha Morgan for bringing Resolution 652 for special education, appointing members of the Special Education Committee. I noted today that, it's no question, it's just a comment. Thank you, though. Thank you for being proactive. I noticed today in the National School Board Association e-newsletter that we're celebrating the 45th anniversary of the IDEA, which I think means it's older than you are, right? So, again, thank you. And as we spoke at our last work session, I look forward to seeing parent representatives' names added to the list. Thank you.
Okay, so just so that we're clear, because it's not always clear what I'm doing here, and I appreciate that. When I move from left to right,
You just ignored me, Mr. Superintendent. That's what he's doing.
I'm just assuming that unless I get one of these, you don't have anything to say, because you don't have to say anything. So if I go left to right and you don't, I look this way and you don't, Natalie actually is pretty good at it. She just kind of like, right? right. So just, if I go this way, just let me know. Commissioner, Vice President Elliott.
Yeah. In reference to Resolution 650, I did submit for the question, but it is unacceptable to me, Mr. Superintendent. I asked about the funding. There's no funding that's listed on this resolution, but there is a 0.5 admin staff person within the resolution, and I get the response that the administrator is out ill and will provide a response upon her return. Nope, somebody get me the answer, please. Somebody in budget should be able to find this information for me, and that if it's presented here and we're asked to vote on it, I think that's, people are insulting this body and presuming that we're going to pay for something that we have no budgetary information for. So I'm going to be voting no on it because I don't have the information. And whoever gave this response, as the administrator is not ill, will provide a response upon return, that's unacceptable to me.
Just to sort of piggyback on that, that's a great response. I mean, how could we vote if we don't have the information? And there must be somebody, not to beat the proverbial dead horse, but there's got to be somebody in this organization that can respond to a question. And so that should, I can't even imagine a situation where if you were given the time, if your team was given the time, you'd provide an answer like that. So,
yeah,
and I know you
understood, and yeah, I absolutely appreciate it, and well stated, Vice President. So I would ask for another Tuesday extension.
I appreciate that, Superintendent Dade.
Yes.
I think that's Vice President Elliott, thank you for pointing that out and for being honest, but respectful.
I know you were.
Jerry, you lucked out over there. You lucked out.
Right out with Commissioner. I got my girls.
Yeah, I see.
Motion to table 650.
There is I hear in all these voices a motion to table to January 28th. It's been moved by Commissioner Powell. There's a second by Commissioner Malloy. All those in favor, I assume by the laughter, I'll take that as an aye. Aye. Any opposition to this motion to table Resolution 650? There is no opposition to that, so that will be tabled. Any other questions regarding Resolution 638 to 660? Commissioner LeBron?
Yes, so I did have a question on that 647. So this organization is providing, again, a donation, and in the MOE or MOU that we have here before us in this format, it does say that we would provide workshop space at central office or at various school locations. One, I don't have a problem with that, but I do know that if these workshops are intended to happen after school closings or even district closings, that there is a cost associated for us to have someone there to open the building and maintenance. I want us to be conscious about that. Printed materials, interpreters, childcare, and food definitely has a cost. Bus passes for parents attending workshops would also have a cost. Flyers, advertising, and promotion, depending on what type of advertising and promotion, could potentially also have a cost. So while the donation, the value on their end doesn't exceed $1,500, this could end up potentially costing us more than $1,500. I don't want us to not have this service in place, but there are costs to doing things that way, and I would just like to understand where the funding for these specific requests would be coming from, and if that was budgeted for prior to this MOU. I just want to understand. And let me tell you, I'm working under a similar MOU right now with one organization where I work in others, and they have to provide certain things, and there is a cost, and sometimes people don't have the foresight about that, and it's a struggle on their budget. I know. I'm living that struggle right now.
Okay.
Good evening. I don't have the 100% answer for you. Khadijah Muhammad, this is her resolution, and I did text her earlier, and I didn't touch base with her today, so my apologies. I am assuming that it is Title I funding because the Office of Parent Engagement has Title I funding to be used for parents. That is where the funding that she uses for all of the parent meetings, for the food that's supplied at the parent meetings. I'm almost 100% positive that it is the Title I funding because this is for the parent university. But if you are not comfortable with this, we can table this as well and get that clarification from her, and we can bring this back.
Yeah, because I think the biggest thing I'm going to be looking for is, was this budgeted for, even if it's Title I funding, because through the budget process, Title I funding should have also been allocated already for the year. So unless there were some significant changes or we had an increase, I just need to understand that. And if we do go into this, I want us as a district to ensure that we commit to providing these things so that we don't leave a bad taste in an organization's mouth believing that this is what we promised them in exchange for their services and goods, and then we don't deliver. So I just want to be clear about that. Thank you. So I would be comfortable tabling until Tuesday.
That is a motion to table. Is there a second to that motion?
Seconded.
Seconded by Commissioner Malloy. Motion to table Resolution 647 goes directly to a vote. Before we vote as a board, we have to take our student advisory recommendation. Ms. Spencer?
Aye.
All those in favor of tabling Resolution 647, say aye. Aye. Any opposition? That, by the way, is tabled to January 28th. Again, I am told that that meeting in terms of agendas is relatively light, so these tabled resolutions we're adding shouldn't cause us much delay that evening. Any other questions or comments regarding Resolution 637 to 660?
I have one more question for the question log. It doesn't have to be answered today, but 660, I just want to know how the 35 district staff, how they were chosen.
What resolution is that, Commissioner?
660.
Okay. If I heard you correctly, Commissioner Shepard, you said you didn't need that answer today? Okay. So someone on your team will answer that?
No, we can answer it.
Okay.
It was for our TIC training, which is our crisis response grief offering. And what we did was we chose individuals from schools that did not have individuals trained in that particular school.
Any other questions or comments regarding that?
Yes, I'm sorry,
Yes,
Leanne
ma'am.
and
Go ahead.
Terry. One more, because 651 is also another MOE with a donation from an organization to 2 of our schools. And then what we are to provide is office space, use of school library, and use of classroom space, which, if that is true, I appreciate that, but I just need to understand that then that means that they won't be coming in and we can't provide the supports that they're going to need if they're not, like printing and so forth. Anybody know that? I have to ask these things because
Table it to Tuesday.
Okay. We're gonna, so a motion to
Okay.
table.
Commissioner LeBron has made a motion to
651.
table Resolution 651. Is there a second to that?
Second.
And seconded by Commissioner Malloy. A motion to table goes directly to a vote after, of course, we take our student advisory vote. Ms. Spencer?
Aye.
All right, we have the aye from Ms. Spencer. All those in favor of tabling Resolution 651, say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Okay, that too is tabled for a date certain, which would be January 28th. Any other questions or comments regarding Resolution 637 to 660? All right, I don't think there are any further questions or comments. So what we're about to do is we're about to vote on that bundle of Resolutions 637 to 660. Now, you realize that we're not going to be voting on Resolution 639. There's a request to have that go into executive session. And you should know that Resolution 647 and 650 and 651 have been tabled, so we won't be voting on that when we do it as a bundle. Did I miss anything, colleagues, in terms of Madam Clerk? I'm good? All right, so all those in favor of Resolution 637 to 660, with, of course, the exceptions that I just described, say aye. Oh, thank you. I knew you all were going to write. Don't vote just yet. Ms. Spencer, again, I apologize. What's your advice?
Aye. I agree with you.
Thank you. All right, we've got our student advisory vote. Now we can take that vote. All those in favor of Resolution 637 to 660, with the exception of those particular resolutions that I've described a few minutes ago, say aye. 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 Any opposition?
Mr. President, I have to abstain on Resolution 649.
All right, Madam Clerk, you've recorded those votes. We're good? All right, so we next move on. There's no unfinished business, but there is some new business. We have proposed revisions to Policy 2260, advisory bodies. This is in the policy journey. We're having a discussion on this particular revision to our policies. We don't have to literally have a discussion on it.
No vote tonight?
No, this is not the night we vote on it. This is the night that we theoretically discuss it, although we've discussed this in committee and policy committee. I think it was just last week, and I think there was some... No.
My understanding of our three-step process is that having discussed it as a committee of the whole, that qualifies as the information item. That this is the first time the public is hearing about it officially in a broadcast setting, so this would be the information item. Not information, I'm sorry.
Discussion.
The discussion item, but I would offer this. Well, we actually voted, so I could vote, I could
So why-
make a motion to rescind.
Okay, so just in the future, if something is on for discussion, it shouldn't be, and I'm glad we caught this, it shouldn't be listed as a item for voting. Because as Commissioner Powell indicates, there's a three-step process. The second phase is discussion. That's where we're at today. We previously had this on our agenda in committee, and then the next meeting we vote on it. So to rectify things, I need a motion to, and Commissioner Powell, you're making that motion to rescind.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Powell, seconded by Commissioner LeBron, to rescind the vote on Resolution 654. Any questions or comments regarding that proposed resolution? Yes.
One comment. The policy to amend our board policies does indicate that the action item needs to be taken within 30 days of the discussion item. It doesn't mean we have to wait until our March meeting. We could, in fact, take this up in our Tuesday meeting since we're doing so much other business on Tuesday.
And I imagine it's going to be a very quick discussion.
Rescinding.
So there's been a motion to rescind the prior vote with respect to Resolution 654. Any further questions or comments regarding rescinding the vote we just took moments ago?
Yes, Mr.
Respecting
President.
654, yes.
So if we rescind it, does that mean that we need to now table it?
Yes, well, we rescinded that vote, so then we would table it for a date certain, which would be January 28th.
Thank you.
Okay? All right, so let's take a vote on the motion to rescind the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? All right, now I need a motion to table Resolution 654.
Wait, are we having discussion as to why we're tabling this? I'm kind of confused, because we did have discussion from the dais, then in policy, made the changes, and then this was the final changes. That's my understanding.
We're going to vote on this, and I don't doubt for a minute it's going to pass, but it's a three-step process. The initial phase took place at the policy meeting.
No, the initial phase was presented here from the dais, and then we had discussion at the policy meeting, and there was changes. I remember, because you and I got into some disagreements about some of the language in there, but the initial conversations, and I'll pull it, Van, I'll look at the board meetings online and pull the date for you, but we already initially had some conversations from the dais, then in the policy meeting, and my understanding at this last policy meeting where this was finalized with the language, that this would be coming today for a vote so that we can move forward and it was going to be done.
So let me
Talia, is that your understanding as well, or?
So hold on. So let me tell you why I don't think that's the case here. We discussed in committee a resolution that looked totally different. There were some changes that were made, and the first time those changes were made, we took out some language about advice and consent. Then it's now been formalized, and we're having that conversation today. It's going to pass. I don't know that any person's going to oppose it, but we do have a three-step process. That language that we talked about 2 meetings ago wasn't formalized. It was formalized at our meeting, at the policy committee meeting, where we got rid of that advice and consent language. Now we're discussing the finalized language, and then just Tuesday, we're going to vote on it. That's all. It's not a major ordeal.
Mr. President,
Yes.
if I could elaborate, when a change to a proposed language resets the clock, because it's the public engagement around the final language that the policy adoption process was designed for, to give the public an opportunity to react to the final language. Yes, we've talked about this before, and the policy committee was that place where the final language was hammered out. That became the information item that reset the clock.
So, but I don't want to belabor the point. I mean, we're going to vote on it in what, 3 business days? So,
Well, it's more than 3 business days,
2.
but I just don't understand why we have to hold off on voting on this the next week if there's no more further discussion. And again, we talk about a 3-step process. This is the 3rd conversation around this policy amendment and changes to it. So that's just where I'm coming from. The other piece is that I don't know what policy steps were taken, but when I was on policy committee and former Commissioner Funches was the chair, that part of her vision was this process that did involve stakeholders' input for it, but this certainly did not go through any of that. It only came through the board, started at this dais, ended in policy, extensive conversation there, and I'm not understanding why this has to be tabled. But if the board wants to table it until next Tuesday, that's fine, but I also feel like this is something we could remove from our plate today. I don't think anybody's going to oppose this policy as it's written.
Well, the first challenge that we had is a motion to table is supposed to go directly to vote. But we could stand on process or policy, whatever the board's favors. I've indicated that I believe it's going to pass. If people want to vote on it tonight, that's fine. There's no reason for us to be spending 10 minutes even tonight on debating whether we should talk about it 2 days from now. If people want to, I'll tell you what, let's just take the vote on the motion to table. And if there aren't enough votes for the motion to table, then we have to go in, because we've already rescinded our last vote, so we'll have to vote again, and that's fine, however folks want to handle it. So let's do this motion table. All those in favor of motion to table, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
Me, no.
All right, so the ayes have it. We're going to talk about this Tuesday. I'm sure it'll pass very quickly on Tuesday. All right. So I think we're in good shape. The next item on the agenda is we have to go into executive session to discuss Resolution 639. I would also note to my colleagues that I have asked General Counsel Carl Christoph to give us some guidance and advice next Tuesday. Again, it still is going to be a light agenda. Some counsel on the bill that is pending in the New York State Capitol regarding the alleged monitor, and also to give us some general counsel and advice on the comptroller's letter, and I'm sure the superintendent will have maybe some additional stuff to say about that. That's all on January 28th, 2020. Mr. Franklin, he always just seems to leave when I want to, is he there? Well, okay. The last time I thanked him, I want to thank him on behalf of the board. I don't think he was in the room. I lost track of him. So someone will tell him the board appreciates him being here, and we appreciate the value and experience that he's going to bring to our conversations. All right, is there a motion to go into executive session to discuss a particular person?
So moved.
It's been moved by Commissioner Vice President Elliott, seconded by, did I hear a second down there somewhere? Commissioner Shepard. All those in favor say aye. Aye?
Aye.
You okay with that?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Spencer, I will get better at that. For those of you who want to see us after we conclude our conversation, we are going to reconvene downstairs on the second floor.